Pra Somdej Wat Rakhang ลงรักชาติ Somdej Wat Rakhang of Somdej with authenticity certificate with red lacquer from Wat Rakhang Kositaram. Pim Gate Talus, top knot piercing the arch from the Chang Luang Wijarn block press artisan. This amulet was authenticated and certificated by the Amulet Society of Siam, Thailand, or the Chomrom Song Pra Somdej Mung Siam of Thailand. And now we take a look at the Pra Somdej Wat Rakhang of Pra Somdej Amulet of the block Chang Luang Wijarn Pim Gate Talus Long Rat chart with red lacquer, and see the different aspects of the edges, how they look like megaliths, not straight, how the contraction of the Muonsan through the rising up of the moisture and the drying and contraction of the sacred powders has caused the marbling effect. How this yellowish effect shows a large amount of namantang eel, and the rear face shows the highly affixed lacquer with the pongputakon rising up through the surface, which has risen up through the surface as the lacquer was wet. The finer powders of the Luang and the pongputakon pongwiset hachanit, 5 sacred powders of Somdej have risen through and affixed themselves to the surface of the lacquer. And if you scratch with your nail, you will find that you cannot de-affix it. This is very, very hard, very, very, very highly affixed through natural aging process. And before we go into a general look, we just take a quick look at the Muonsan in 12 times macro, where we can see pieces of black, red and white crystalline substances, as well as highly affixed, very fine white talc powders in the elbows and in the recesses of the armpits and against the protrusions of the amulet, as we can see around the neck, around the crook of the elbows, and where the chest protrudes, the sankati, you can see pieces of various kinds of Muonsan present, which should be present within amulets of Somdej Prabodajanto Promrangsi of Wat Rakhang Kositaram. Apart from this, of course, we have the appearance of the red lacquer, which is highly affixed, but not completely covering the amulet, allowing us to see portions of the Muonsan, of the sacred clay, protruding from underneath the lacquer, which wasn't completely covered, or which has broken off. I would say not completely covered. We can see pongputakon, which has risen through the surface of the lacquer while it was still wet, as it was being pushed out through the moisture within the clay, pushing out the finer powders and leaving the coarser powders within, and the finer powders rushed out to appear on top of the lacquer, which is this pinkish white powder you can see on top of the red lacquer affixed to the amulet. And here now we take a general look at the Pra Somdej Wat Rakhang Kositaram Pim Gate Talus Somdej Prabodajanto Promrangsi Wat Rakhang Kositaram from the block Chang Luang Wijarn, the head of all the artisans of the Chang Sipmu preferred group of block press artisans. And we can see the edges, how I like to call them, like megaliths, which means they have a rubbly, kind of uneven, aged look to them, like aged megaliths do. They're not straight and flat like a 2537 Somdej. They're more like a 239 something or a 240 something Somdej, and the highly affixed lacquer, how well affixed it is, and the pongputakon, which has risen through the surface and dried so hard on it, the textured surface, which we call Tek Langa, which means ivory kind of markings, which is this marbled surface appearance. If you look at the arch, look at the top, you can see contractions within the edges where the moisture within the clay has left and the clay has contracted and caused chunks of the various kinds of muon san within the amulet, such as Hinsilatikun, white crystalline substance, Pong Wiset Hatanit, 5 kinds of very fine talc like yantra powders, which is Pong Putakun, Pom Batamang, Pom Putakun, Pom Tinisinghe, Pom Itije, and Pong Maharad, as well as Goinam Thai, bananas. So you will see small black spots, which might be pieces of banana seed, or it might be pieces of patat dam, which is a lye type substance, and red pieces, which comes from broken pieces of ancient Prakru camping pit, 1,000-year-old amulets, which Somdej Paputajanto mixed in with the muon san. So you will see red flecks and sometimes black glassy flecks, which could be banana seed or could be like lye type substance from the Prak camping pit, Prakru hiding place amulets, which were broken in with the muon san. And noticing the powder on top of the red lacquer, which is affixed to the front face of the amulet around the Buddha, you can see how the powder has risen during the time the lacquer was still drying, and risen to the surface and then dried on top of it and absorbed the lacquer and changed its color from white talcish color to a purpley pink, which it has adopted from the red lacquer, ancient Chinese lacquer. If we look between the hands and the body of the Buddha, we can see the purpley pink powder attached, and we can see it attached on top of the various of the thin and driest portions of the red lacquer, like in the top left of the screen right now. And in the center right of the screen, we can see a red spot, which looks like a piece of Prak camping pit amulet, Prak camping pit amulet, and the black markings, which you see as little streams, will be coming from Pong Bailan, black Bailan, burnt grimoire soot powders, and other stuff such as dinpong, earths. And as we look now at the sum, I like to say Kamawat sum, knotted arch, we can see slight bulges in the rim of the arch, and we can see this thick piece of Pong Putakun or Pong Wiset, which has crept up through the lacquer and affixed itself to the top. That's been on for a long time, and you would need a very sharp, hard instrument to break it off, and I wouldn't advise you to do it because that's part of the character of this Somdej, and has affixed itself to the lacquer. And we can see some yellowish tone to the muon san, which protrudes from the lacquer, which shows a high quantity of namantang yu, tang oil. Some will be whiter, which will be nerpun pit, be white like ivory, which will have a lot of seashell in it and be very smooth, highly preferred, very expensive, even more expensive than such a model as this. You can see the gate talutsum, the top knot piercing through the arch, and look at the bulge in the arch, and not just that the black markings are on the surface, but some of them delve deep in like valleys, and you can see little dents and pieces of muon san, and these bulges of the arch. You cannot really reproduce this with fakery so easily. And to see the ingredients within, this looks very shiny because of the amount of oil, with tang oil within this particular model, and also because of the contact with surfaces and contact with the atmosphere where it has not been lacquered. And you can see the muon san, the bailan powders penetrating through. We can see through the head here and the top knot of the arch with the lacquer affixed so really well affixed, very difficult to remove, and very smooth marbled appearance to the face, which is one of the most protruding parts of the amulet, along with the chest and the knees, which are where you will see the most transparency, the most wear and tear, but also the most looks almost wet, doesn't it? It looks almost shiny wet, and you, through this transparency of the shininess, you can see the individual elements of Muan, of the ingredients, the sacred ingredients. So here we can see Hinsi Latikun, we can see red piece of Prat Gampeng Pet. Down towards the bottom there's a shiny black piece of Patat Dam from the Prat Gampeng Pet, like lye type substance. Little pieces of white Hinsi Latikun crystal, little pieces of black flakes, the Bailam powders running through the cracks in the chest. And here we can see around the crook of the elbow the white powders that have taken on a pinkish colour as they have affixed themselves to the red lacquer, once again after protruding through it, coming out through the clay. And where the clay, the hands and the arms protrude from the lacquer, you can see the true aging and true density of the clay. It's like hard marble for sacred clay, from wet, sacred, powdery, easily broken clay to turn into a domino hard marble type substance like this does not happen overnight. And they can make it look like that a bit with resin, which if you burn, it will burn and it will smell, but this won't. And here we can see the Bailan powders, and in the middle of the screen a piece of Hinsi Latikun, and to the left of the screen also a piece of Muan San. The middle of the screen a big chunk of Hinsi Latikun, and to the right of it, in the middle of the arch, also another piece of Hinsi Latikun. And slightly to the left of the large piece of Hinsi Latikun, in the middle of the screen, there's a little red dot, which might be a piece of Prat Gampeng Pet powder. And you can see the irregularity here of the kamuatsum, of the knots in the arch. I call it kamuatsum, or some kamuatsum, a knotted arch. You can see these bulges. It's like a dragon, it's like an eel swallowing something in his throat. Goes to a pointy head. You can see his eye there. I can anyway. So this kind of irregularity in the arches is very difficult to fake. And this is something that you should take into consideration when examining Pra Somdej Wat Rakhang and Pra Somdej Wat Prom amulets. This is also true with the 2509 famous later new era edition amulets of Wat Prom Due. Also to look at the Due means also in Thai. To look at the arch. Here we can see a close-up of the lacquer, which looks wet, but believe me, is dry. But as you see, it's not completely dry. It might even take another 50 years before it's all completely matte in color. And we're already looking at 160, 170 years or so. Yeah. And see how the Pongputakun, the white powders, have taken on a slight tint from the red ancient Chinese lacquer, and how deeply it's affixed to the surface of the amulet. It's unbelievably well affixed. In short, a masterclass amulet of great beauty from the greatest maker of Pra Somdej amulets of all time.